Welcome back. It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. My name's Kevin Stoller, host of the show, and we are always trying to pull in different perspectives, make sure we're getting representation from school leaders that are actively out implementing and seeing what's happening in the world. And then we also are looking at different aspects. But this episode, we are going to really spend the time going into leadership, getting that superintendent perspective. And I'm going to pull in Dave Dumon, who is a superintendent at Man, I did it now. We were just talking about how it's not pronounced Altar. It's even though it's spelled that way. It's Altar Valley School District in Tucson. And Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Kevin, for having me. Thanks.
So, as a superintendent, you get to see a lot of different things. But I want to get just a little bit of your background of like what was school like for you? Because I feel like that sets the stage a little bit.
Yeah. Well, school for me is probably when I think about it, really kind of like why I'm here today. I started. I went to school. I went to kindergarten twice. So I love school so much that, and I've always loved school. But I did go to go to kindergarten twice. I was one of those guys. I started when I was 4. I got a November birthday, and I wasn't ready for kindergarten, and I'm probably still that 4-year-old guy down at the base of it. But I went to school, and I wasn't really ready. And but I do always remember loving school. I mean, I remember playing school when I was little, but school was always at the beginning was challenging for me. I remember I always liked it, but just challenging. I remember being in like the low reading group or the low math group. I remember as I started school in Michigan, moved to Arizona when I was 10. I remember coming to Arizona and even being even felt like I was like even further behind. Like I wasn't in any special services, but I remember going to another class for this, another class for that. My class would be taking a test, and I'd be on like headphones listening to. I do remember the Grease soundtrack for some reason. It sticks out to me. Like they were taking a test, and I was doing this, and I might have sung out loud or something. So, whatever. But so school was challenging, but I always liked it, and it didn't bother me. And just kind of got through, and I mean that's part of learning is like fighting through those challenges. And so I just kind of proceeded, and at some point school, getting good grades and doing school was important to me. That was kind of like junior high. And then I got to high school, and that kind of all went out the window, and it was all about like sports and having fun and goofing around and weightlifting, which I really appreciate now. As I'm older, I'm still into weightlifting. So it's like definitely something that's carried with me.
Good habit to have.
Is that. But those things were important in high school, which then in turn made what I did after high school. Like I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and luckily, because of a great a great wrestling coach, he kind of tapped me into like, hey, he had me volunteer being a wrestling coach at my junior high. I have a little brother who's 7 years younger than me, so I spent a lot of time coaching his sports. Probably not helping him all in school, but helping him with sports or athletics. And not that I was good at any of those things, but just an average athlete. But helped him. I like teaching and learning, and so kind of those things happened. And thanks to my wrestling coach, he got me into coaching wrestling, and then my wrestling coach got me a drywall job out of high school, and I was doing that, and I realized like, wow, this is hard, and I don't know if I want this to be my career. So I, went back to I'm going to go to school, and like I said, like because I goofed around in high school, college was hard. I had to have tutors and retake some classes, but once I finally got to ASU and got into the education program, it just kind of all was like, this is like what I want to do. And
That's
not that, I was ready to be a teacher or an administrator, but I knew this is what I wanted to do. So, yeah.
How long were you doing the drywall?
A couple of years,
Okay,
2 years, and
yeah.
enough to teach me skills that still I know enough to, I can, fix holes in walls and frame a few things, and but did that, and and I learned from that. I from doing a paper route like in junior high, and that I love the mornings, which helps me as where I'm at now. I'm really about getting up early, having that time in the morning to think, reflect, exercise, so those are been with me since for a long time. So
Yeah. Well, that all right. So there's a couple things I want to pull from that because
okay.
that's super helpful to just set up, like a little bit of the history. Because I feel like a lot of time when people go into education, like their experience helps shape why they got into it and what they want to do with it. You said something in there of like grades are always important to you, and I feel like there's this movement right now, and like parents are trying to like figure out like what do we really want for our kids, like like our generation, and I'm in my late 40s. uh, at least my generation where I grew up, Chicago area, it was more of like it's assumed success looks like going from high school right to college in there. And I don't know where, like, there was definitely a pressure to get good grades, but I didn't know, like, was it internal for you? Did you feel an external pressure to get good grades? Like, why was that important to
I mean, I know my well, that's my parent. I know my parents. I mean, they expected it, but like there was nothing done to make sure I got good grades. It was like it was. I'm a little bit older than you, and it was kind of like, but just I always, I wanted to do well. I guess I'm kind of competitive at the end of the day, and to do well in things is always been important. And what I've obviously learned, what's good is for me or is different for other people. But yeah, I just at some point in like junior high, and that was important, but then it all went out the window, and it was like I just want to I did just enough just to get by, so that I never was a state champ or anything, so that wasn't important. Wrestling was great, but it wasn't like the most important thing. So it was just about the experience, I guess, at some
you?
point.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So a little more history thing, and then I'm going to get more to like what you're
Okay,
doing
yeah,
now. But so that aspect of working a couple of years doing drywall, how do you think that, like, did you view when you went to ASU, then did you view things differently versus the ones that just went high school right to college?
for sure. I never had like a normal, like I have friends that, high school friends that I'm still friends with today. And, one of my friends is a judge now, and him and I used to compete in seventh grade ELA, and we still talk about who was better, who had the highest grade. And, there's still, I think it's me, he thinks it's him. But yeah, those years of working, realized like, well, this is hard, and I like getting up in the morning early now because I enjoy it. But then I had to get up because we're going to work, and it was turning into like I was getting more responsibilities and different things, and I'm like, well, is this what I want to do? And it was like, and then back from working with my brother and those things, I was like, well, I really, I never thought about being a teacher. It's I always, like, it was always in my head. I always like it, liked it, but I'm like, oh, the teaching's for other people, that's not for me. I'm going to do something. And I'm like, well, that's like, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to do this? Or am I going to do that? And I realized, oh, I want to be a teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I remember we did some career test in junior high, and it came up I was either going to be a teacher or like a clergyman, and I didn't, I don't think I was going to get into that. So it was more the teaching route. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. So then, I definitely want to get on some of those habits and things that you did, like like just to hear you talk about like how important that morning is and the reflection and things like that. You recognize that early. How much do you, like, now that you've looking at your career path of going teacher? Because I'm assuming you went. Probably shouldn't make the assumption you went teaching and then you went administration and then you just kind of moved,
Yeah.
into the point where you went into the superintendent role. How much, uh, as your role as a superintendent, is what I would say more of like leadership, just pure leadership, whether it's in the education sector or not, or focusing more on like the academic side? Like what's your mindset like when you go into the superintendent? Like what are the things that you're thinking of and are most important to you?
Yeah, so like my career, I'm starting my 30th year. I'm in my 30th year, in my 30th year right now. I got into education. I taught for 5 years. I had five different principals in 5 years, and that's kind of like how I got into the administrative track. Was like, well, not that any of them were bad, just they were all, I'm like, I've had five, and you got five different leaders doing five different things in 5 years. And I'm like, well, I can do this. And so easier said than done, so then, you get into, being a leader, and it's like about, we talk about what is your vision, and like what's important, and then managing the day to day, and you got to manage those two things, and like what do you want long term, and then like what do you need to do today. So your question is
It was a loaded question. I
yeah,
get
yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 for sure. But my goal is to always be like, we always look into the future and trying to make sure my people, I have two schools in my district that my schools, my principals, my teachers have what they need. I make sure that, I'm visiting, and hanging out with the kids are what I enjoy. I mean, I went around and did like all stars of the month yesterday, and try to make sure I go and just hang out at lunch or visit, and really seeing what's going on at the school so that I can help make sure that everybody has what they need to be successful.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things because I did not come in through the education route. Like my professional career is on, like, I work in the education sector, so I'm always looking at like the correlations. And like for me, like I did okay with at school, but it was like more of like I was really good at just playing the game of school. But I really like my education, like my learning, my desire for learning actually happened once I graduated college. Like that was really like my biggest. It's been in my 20s and my 30s of just this discipline of like learning and seeking sources and trying to do that. And one of the things that is really difficult in the business world is that that typically you take practitioners, somebody who's really good at something, and because they're so good at it, they get promoted, and now they're in a skill set that they haven't been trained for, and they have to learn a whole new skill set because they're no longer practitioners. And I'm seeing the parallels that happen in education, where you have teachers that typically are really good at it, so then they get tapped on the shoulder when there's an administration position that opens up, and you do that, and it just kind of goes that way. And trying to recognize, like, do they have the right skill sets, like what's the development, what's the training that happens with that component to that. What was that like for you, and as like you're developing like within your district, do you think through that? Are there things that like that you can see with that? Because I feel like that as I work with school superintendents, that's the piece where I feel like it is kind of where there's a gap in there. And I don't want to speak for you guys,
No,
but like
yeah,
I
no,
truly want to say,
no, every step of the way, it's been like you just said. You think, oh, I can do better, and then now I'm a assistant principal for a couple of years. Actually, I was a teacher on special assignment. It was funny. I was just at my mom's house, and my daughter wanted to see my look at my phone, and I'm like, or something, and I'm like, hey, let's look at the old Facebook. I got out some albums, and we started flipping through some things, and then my dad had an article when I got promoted from TOSA, which I'm like, oh, I was a TOSA, to the principal of the most, the neediest school in the district. I have the least experience. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking at all these other people that got, I was in a bigger district in Phoenix. Well, it was a small district at that time, and they grew from like 6 schools to 24 schools in the time I was there. And so I'm taking over, one of these schools, and I'm the least experienced. I'm a TOSA, and kind of like exactly what you say. I'm like, all right, here you go. And it was yeah, I was at that school for 2 years as assistant and 10 years as the principal. and really proud of the work I did there. But at that time they had like reading first was around, and so I learned so much. We had a partnership with West Ed, and I learned so much, like how to because I wasn't an elementary teacher. I was a middle school teacher, and but I learned so much about reading, and from West Ed, and a great coach, like that. I learned so much during that time, like that. I've called her over the years and said, "Hey, thank you for everything you've taught me about being a leader, and knowing about reading instruction." And so, for sure, I didn't know what I was getting into. And I know I the superintendent that hired me at the time, told me why she hired me, and which meant a lot. And I really took that and ran with it. And then from doing that, like I ended up district office for being a director of federal programs, because my school was Title I, and we were a successful Title I school at that point. We were a high performing Title I school, and we're like, hey, let's put Dave in charge of federal programs, and then community education, which I knew nothing about, which got me my experience with dealing with high schools and facilities rentals. And then that included, like, let's open up some preschools and have Dave do that. And so that was that was great. And at that point, it was like I was, again, another challenge, more learning. And I love learning. And I think that's kind of, as a superintendent, every day I'm learning something. I'm not really, I know this could probably be another podcast about my experiences with the school facilities board and that whole process. Like, I'm still learning that, and hopefully I'm close to figuring that out. But we're always learning. And so from going from that job, and being a director for 2 years, what I realized was, like, I kind of didn't like it, because in a big district, nobody, I'm just a director, just go direct. When you're a principal of a high performing school, I just felt like I was doing more. So I was like, well, I either want to go back and be a principal or try being a superintendent. So that's kind of how I ended up here. Moving from Phoenix to Tucson, and being an ASU grad and all of that stuff. I thoroughly love Tucson, and been here 10 years, and it's but I'm always having to learn as a superintendent, is what I realized. And and that's what I like about it. It's never the same, and I've got to learn something new.
Yeah, and it's so complicated, and you're kind of bucking the trend here, because how many years are you in
Been,
this role now?
been 30 years and 10 years at Altar Valley.
So 10 years, and that's really uncommon. In when you look at the data right
Mm-hmm.
now, where there does seem to be more turnover. And I think that's where I was, like, in a poorly way of wording those questions, of getting to, it's like, you really start learning the role. It takes 2 or 3 years to, like, really even, like, feel like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I got this now. And that's where, like, just from the the outside looking in, the ones that have been there longer are the ones that have been really able to implement things and really drive that cultural, and that really, like, change throughout the district in there. I mean, 10 years in there, like, where are you at right now? Like, how do you feel about things? Like, what are the things that are keeping you up at night? What are the things that you're thinking of at this point?
Well, there's there's a lot of things. But probably, like, one of my one of the things that's not a problem right now, but it will be, or it always is we're Alta Valley is not that far from downtown Tucson. We're about 25 miles, but because it's down a 2-lane highway, it seems like it's out in the middle of nowhere. We really struggle, and everybody does, but with teachers. And so back, like, 6-7 years ago, when I first came here, like, we pretty much do not have people applying for jobs here when I have an opening. And so right now, half of my staff are international teachers. And so an ongoing challenge, because right now they're all on J1 visas. They're here for 3 to 5 years, and so it's kind of like a little treadmill that I'm on. And so it took me it took me more than a couple of years, but now I'm realizing that like the J1 visa teachers, they're great, and we've had great success. And but half of my staff is basically that right now. So now I need to be. I'm looking at the H1B visas and why I didn't think of it sooner. I'm like, well, why didn't I think of this sooner? Because now we're 5-6 years into this process, and so I've been starting to turn over some teachers and bringing in new teachers. So now I'm trying to look into, well, how can I get teachers here for the long term, and get them built into our community, and be part of our community and stay in our community versus coming here for 5 years and then leaving, and then maybe I can get them back in 2 years or not, and it's try to build a really good team that's going to be here for the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that's a creative way to deal with the teacher shortage and recruiting. Um, yeah, what was that thought process when you were saying like, man, I need teachers, and if they're not here, I need to go look somewhere else. What
Yeah.
talk through that?
Well, we have. I'm sure every county has. We do. We have a Pima County Superintendent's Collaborative, and so I talk to those superintendents, but most of them are, in town, so they don't. I mean, they have challenges, and they're doing the same thing. But then, we have this random, Ajo school district, which is even west of me, but is part of Pima County, but might be closer to Maricopa County. I talking to him, and he challenges even bigger than me. And so kind of talking to him, and then you're talking to my colleagues in town, and just realize, okay, this is an option. And so I just kind of I had to do something. And if I did nothing, we would have no teachers. And so I had to figure out how to get highly qualified teachers. And some of the teachers are great. I mean, they're great. We have some amazing teachers. We've had hate to see them go. And so it's like, how can I get them back, and how can I keep them is really what I'm trying to figure out now.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I've been following you on social media too, and it does seem like you have this really good group of superintendents that you connect with. And I mean, talk through what's that interaction like when like when you're talking to the neighboring districts and ones around you. What are you guys typically talking about?
Well, just like different things, like what we're doing with our budgets, or like I have declining enrollment. Well, all of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have declining enrollment. What are we doing? How are we doing with that? What are we doing with our different like pay for performance funds, and how are we? At the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same work, so we try to work together. And for like myself, there's a couple other smaller districts like myself in Pima County, and then it's really helpful for me to we're all doing the same work, have the same challenges, because sometimes I'm here and I'm like, I forget, like, oh, this is, and it's just me, and then I'm like, oh no, probably not. And so I'll call somebody, or I'll go to the meeting, and then sometimes I'll be more stressed out than before I got there. But I'll talk to a friend, and it's really important about having relationships and being able to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah, and that's what I've always identified the ones, and like me just for in our short interaction, I'm like, I can already tell you're a good leader because one, you have really good habits, you have good discipline and things that you're doing to give you that time to self-reflect and be able to really think through and process things. And two is that you're seeking out other resources. You're yeah, you will when you have a problem, you're not just going to be like, all right, I'm going to figure it out. You're going to be like, I'm going to use my resources to help figure this out, whether it's talking to other people and looking outside.
I have my like my colleagues. My wife is important, and my 9-year-old daughter. She's turning 9 today. Turned 9 today.
Oh,
So,
cool.
and she
Happy
knows
birthday.
everything. So like she's great. So to talk to her about her school and learning, and she doesn't go to Altar Valley, so it's like but she'll come out and visit. And she has a little assistant superintendent name badge that we'll do walkthroughs with when she comes out, and she's great too. So I feel real lucky to have a great support system.
Have you ever wondered how a simple change in your classroom can revolutionize learning? At K-12, we believe the physical space is key. When we partnered with Gary Community Schools in Indiana, something incredible happened. Their classrooms were outdated and uninspiring. Using our radically student-centered approach, we reimagined their spaces. The transformation was nothing short of amazing. Teachers saw immediate results, students came back from winter break excited, more engaged, collaboration increased, and overall performance improved. One student even shared, "We have new furniture, it's like Christmas all over again." On the first day back, local media came in to cover the story, capturing the joy and excitement of students discovering their new learning environments. See how we can transform your school today. Visit kay-twelve.com to learn more about our innovative approach. K-12, because every student deserves an inspiring place to learn. Visit kay-twelve.com today.
For the people that are not in Arizona, Arizona is a very unique state in that it's open enrollment. It's a really strong charter. Do you face a lot of competition in 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 your area,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
what's the
yeah.
dynamic like right now?
I don't. Well, we don't have charters, but because where we're at, like people can make the choice to like I'm gonna, if they work in town, I'm gonna drive my child into town and put them in a school that's by my work. We have homeschooling. Is a thing. The vouchers is our enrollment is we're small, so to have a decline in enrollment of 40 kids from last year to this year is a big deal. And when I started here 10 years ago, we were over 700 kids, and now we're under 500. So that's a big deal. And so managing that. But yeah, there's not like direct competition next door to me, like colleagues in town, where right across the street there's a charter school that they're or not that that's a bad thing, but there's options everywhere, and it's not like there's an option right next door. But those are all realities of things, and then just trying to provide the best opportunities for our families is really what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Do you mind talking through a little bit your relationship with the board? Like how much, how little interaction? Like what's that dynamic look like for you?
So Altar Valley School Board is I feel like I have a really great school board. They're 5 members. Um, you know, two. Let me. Two of them. One of them is former student here. His mom used to be a board president. I mean, actually, two of them were former students. The other ones, her dad was on the board. So there's this history. One of my newest board members, her mother-in-law was on the board. Um, so I don't want to leave anyone out. And then my other board member, who's new also, used to be my operations director. So they all come with
Nice.
history to Altar Valley for longer than me. And like I said, I've been here 10 years, and so they have a history. They're invested, and they really they care about our kids. And I have a great relationship with them, and a working relationship. And so I feel really lucky to have such a great board.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, those are typically the things that I'm hearing. It's either like the struggle with the board, it's a struggle with competition or enrollment, and then the other is kind of the getting out there and the trust and the relationship building with the community. With how, how much time or focus do you spend on that, or is that just kind of naturally happen for you?
Um, well, I don't know. I mean, the community is our community is like I kind of feel like at times Alta Valley is the hub of our 3 Points Robles Junction community. We just last month, we've had our the 17th annual Robles Junction 3 Points Community Festival, which is not an Alta Valley event, but it's housed at our elementary school. And so it comes in, and we typically have 2,000 people come to that event. And I take a lot of pride in that. And I work with our friends at Robles Ranch and other community members, Pima County, to put this event on. And so that's always one of our highlights of our year. We do Altar Valley in the Robles Elementary. We do a community Thanksgiving. Again, I'm a partner with the one of Serenity Church, 3 Points Fire, where we do free meals for the community members that need it on Thanksgiving. We, as a school, then we try to do quarterly family fun nights where we try to feed as many people as we can. Obviously, there's got to be a cut on that. We feed them that come in, and then we have fun. So the community is really important to us at Altar Valley, and the governing board. That's something a lot of these things has always been important to them, and I love being able to be a part of those things.
Yeah. I mentioned it before, but one of the things that I feel like, looking at a much broader view at the country level, I feel like there's a lot of discussion at the parent level right now of like, what do we really want for our schools? And then it's really interesting when you like break it down and you really get into the local one of like what does success look like for you? And if you had to answer that for your district, like what are the things that, if you were going to say, hey, if we can do this, we are doing exactly what we should be doing?
Well, so I want to be able to provide a safe place where our parents know they're sending their place to a safe place where their kids are loved and valued and respected. I mean, I really I still like to have fun, and when I go see kids and I visit classrooms, it's important to me that they are having fun, they're safe, and those are important things to me.
That's great. Are there external things that are making it harder for that?
Yeah, for sure. School labels just came out, and those are challenging. Altar Valley, they're giving district letter grades out now, and so Altar Valley is a B. So that's I didn't know it was going to be a B until it was going to be a B. And then my middle school's a B, and my elementary school's a C, and it had been a D, and that was that was stressful last year. And you have parents that know that, and that's like it's a D, but it is. But we're doing your children are safe here. They're valued. They're loved. They're cared for, and and yeah, and that's, I don't want that either. I want to. I want to have a better grade also, and so we're B and a C, we're a B district. But yeah, those are definitely pressures and things that people look at, really make a quick judgment, and until we'll come visit our school and you'll see how awesome it is, and yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing is like, I mean, you see, our team wears these radically student centered shirts. That's like really like what we're always like, man, just think how lucky are we that our work impacts the next generation? Like if we just keep that focus of like, why we're doing this, it's about the students, it's about giving them the best opportunity of it. Is there anything that, like, if you can wave a magic wand and say like, hey, if we just like, we're getting so caught up on something else, is there something that you could pinpoint, or maybe it's a few things to say like, man, our job and our outcomes would be a lot better if we could just fix this?
Well, I know our teachers and our staff are, they work so hard, and I just feel like, they love what they do, and just to know that they're doing the best they can too. Our teachers are, we have teachers, so just kind of, to think about, teachers are people, and are, bus drivers, and they're, they're all working really hard, and they all have a life and things, and sometimes I think people forget that, and I mean, maybe that would be one thing. Just remember that teachers are people, paraprofessionals are people, bus drivers. We're all, in this, and like, let's just, let's be kind, and just do the best we can. And I don't know. That'd be one thing to, I don't know if it'd be waving a magic wand, but to
Yeah.
remind people that about that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things too. Like when I hear you talk about like the like the letter grade, like everyone's competitive. Nobody wants to have like a bad letter grade on there. But to your point of like, what other professions and jobs or things like do you get a label put on publicly? Be like, oh, like yeah, that trash collector. Oh, he got a C minus today, and everyone sees it and is pointing and be like, you got a C minus, like that's one of the things to me. I'm like, like I get why people are doing that, but I feel like it just puts the schools in a negative like stance to begin with, because now they have to cater to some like outside measuring system that may or may not be like really in the best interest of kids. And I don't know how to correct that, but I feel like that's one of the things that it's like everyone wants to have a measurement, but are these measurements really good measurements or not?
Yeah.
So does that come into play at all? Like when you see those grades, do you look at it and be like, well, what are the things that we can do and I guess do they align with what you think you would need to do if it wasn't just for the grade?
Yeah, I mean, his then the grades really just come from our state test, the AASA, and so yeah, we definitely we need to do a better job, and we've spent and so when I look at those and I see like some of the things we're not some of like all the things we're trying to do obviously is to do better on to do better on those measures. We've spent a lot of time the past 2 years focusing on doing letters training for our teachers to really help them to be like better get their literacy endorsement and to be better reading teachers, because to me, like going back to when I was a principal, like reading is king. Like we got to be able to read and comprehend text. And so that's like we've spent the past 2 years, and actually we're in year 3, making sure the people that didn't get the first 2 years are caught up, and continuing to make sure everyone has a professional development to have the skills that they need to move forward. And what's neat is like it's shown that it's worked, so it's like great, and so we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for letting me dig into a bunch of just stuff to get like what goes on in your head and in that seat, where I feel like just a lot of people just don't get that opportunity to do that. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should be asking you about?
I'm sure there is. I mean, I'm sure we could, go on longer, but no, I'm good. I think we covered a lot here, so I feel good.
Oh, good. Well, good. Well, that's why we do this. I want to make sure that we're hitting a lot of different perspectives in education, just like in a lot of other aspects of our life. It's really easy to stay in a silo and think like, oh, we know what's going on, but that's a big part of this show is like, let's give different perspectives. Let's see. And so we can hear what is really going on and try to cross things over, because at the end of the day, I truly believe all of us have the same goal in mind. We want to give every kid the best opportunity to succeed. And that's what's so great about education and people that are involved with it. So, Dave, thank you for what you're doing in your role. It's truly like a public servant role. I think it's like it is just one of those roles in society that just does not get enough credit, because it plays so many different things for a community. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. Appreciate it.
And to the listeners, if you are not already a subscriber, hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this. We are putting these up on YouTube as well. We're getting a lot more views of people who want the video component to it. But betterlearningpodcast.com is the hub for anything, and where we get a lot of ideas and guest requests from there too. So great talking to you, Dave, and we'll talk soon.
All right, great. Thank you.
The
views and opinions expressed on the Better Learning Podcast are those of myself as an individual and my guests, and do not necessarily represent the organizations that we work for, the Association for Learning Environments, K-12, Education Leaders Organization, or Second Class Foundation.